Howdy, I am once again back so that I can go through the decomp process, which things became obsolete. However, this time it should stick around longer, but just in case it is, I don't know, I think it's March 1st. All commands are in the description for people who don't like videos. A pinned comment will have any addendums if things change, which some things like retro and other things might change in the future. Anywho, this is for the decomp of Ocarina of Time, but as of the current date, the process should be extremely similar to Majora's Mask. At least, that's what my friend said. This one will be a lot more in depth and longer. Restating that this is once again for the setup process. It is meant for Peyton's tutorial. However, that one is still outdated and even worse now. There are more new tutorials coming out, but they're not out just yet, and I'll link to them eventually when they do come out. So you just have to understand that things won't be perfect. I will try to go into that later on during Blender. But starting out, you will either need WSL, a Linux VM, or just be able to run Linux natively like it's your OS. The terminal is scary for a few, but I'll hold your hand through it just because I've heard a lot of people complain about it. For this one, we like Ubuntu 24.04. That one is primarily the only one that works. This guide will also discuss the version of Fast64 and a few smaller Blender things. Again, please check a pinned comment for anything that have changed. The repo that we use is a copy of the original. It's also going to be slightly off. And all commands and tools will be in the description. We're going to start with Linux VM or native. If you're doing WSL, you can just skip to this timecode or the chapter. If you are doing it in Linux, just watch this and then just skip the WSL section to go into the next part. That's not WSL. Open a directory you are happy with and make sure you know how to access it. Know your password for your machine. Permissions are not always needed to be prefaced with sudo, but sometimes they are, and if they need the permission issues, it just happens. You can still preface it with it. The first line is just sudo apt-get update, and then after that you're going to do another one, which is just another big install package thing. Sometimes it doesn't work due to like not accessing the database or something. That's usually a network error, and as much as I'm IT, that's outside the scope of this tutorial. You can see right here that I'm going to run it without sudo, and it's going to say about the permission denied. I use a sudo bang here, which just means to do the last step. You won't need to do this if you just called sudo earlier. It's just saying that if things go wrong, you can use that. I'll put all these commands in the description, as I said before. After this is done, and it says it's all done, no issue. Mine didn't upgrade anything because it was already up to date. We're going to actually clone the repository. We're going to be cloning a Jamiroquai's version. This is important. I'm going to give an alternative to this that is also one line, and it does the same thing, but it just looks a lot more uglier. I found this one easier as I could actually remember it. And while this is running, I will say I have a bash file that does all of these things in one go. It's just very finicky, because if that fails, or if anything fails, it just keeps going and it won't know, and it just messes everything up. So I'll link it some way. I'm thinking about pricing it to the Discord server, and it'll be pinned in there, or maybe in the source of all of the modern tutorials and files things. It'll probably go in there. At this stage, my thing is done, so we're going to go to whatever directory you gave it to. I put mine in the root, so I'm just going to go to my root folder, and we need to put our ROM in there. So my root folder is the repo. It's going to be called the same thing for everybody. And you also need to actually change your directory into the root for the terminal. This is just so that we can do some commands later. But for now, we need to, again, put the ROM in there. So I'm going to quickly grab my ROM. You cannot ask me for a ROM. And we're going to just drag it in there. And it's going to go into base ROMs. And then you need to select whichever version is yours. Mine happens to be GCEU MasterQuest Debug, mouthful. And that's where I'm going to put it. It needs to be called base ROM. This has changed from my other tutorial because it used to be something else. Now it is just base ROM dot whatever 64 version your extension is. There's also a make file in here, which I'm struggling to find it. There it is. In which, if yours is not GC whatever I used, you need to set it here because it will look for that as a default. Mine just happened to be the default, but if you use one of the other ones, you should change that in the version thing right at that version question mark equals. Just change it to whatever it says in the text above, and then it should look in the right direction at that point once you save that. But once you have all your makefile settings done and your ROMs in there, run make setup. Now you can use a -j argument, and that just uses your cores and makes it run a lot faster. The only reason I don't do it is because the output isn't consistent between everybody when you run it with cores. So that's just for debugging, so you can check if my stuff aligns with yours. But if you just want to run it fast, then just run it with -j. You should really not run it with the cores if you run into an issue while doing this step. This does end up taking a while because of that whole thing, so I'm gonna let it run through off camera, and I'll get back as soon as it gives me access to the terminal again, which is just one that lets me type things. I now have access to my terminal again, which means that all we need to do is just run the make command. It has the exact same -j argument as before, so everything I said there applies here. You probably should use it just to make it faster. This takes a while to run, so I'm just going to cut back to when it's done for me once again. Okay, it is now says okay at the bottom. If it says like something like being tampered with or incorrect, you would need to get like another ROM or there's something wrong with your dump. But once it gives you that okay, you can go to wherever you saved the repo, which is right here, and in extracted will have all your assets that you just extracted. Now when you want to move it this somewhere, you should probably move the entire oop folder, like I'm moving it to the documents, just directly on my Linux machine. If you are using a VM, you may want to use network sharing or shared folders or whatever is supported, just so you can get it to your main computer before you start working on it in Blender. But you are done. With a decomp, that is. I don't show any footage of using the bash file for Linux, but it is almost extremely similar to the WSL version of it, so it'll be at the end of this section. Howdy, feel free to skip to the next part at this time or just the next chapter if you come for the Linux part. I keep backing up more and more and decided I'm going to start here. So if you don't have WSL installed, I'm going to assume as a baseline. There's many videos on how to do it. It's not that hard, you just need to enable visualization, whichever your machine supports. So we're going to start by opening an instance of PowerShell. And once you have that open, we're just going to do some commands like wsl.exe, --list, --online. This lists all the available distros, and we want to download Ubuntu 24.04. It's specific in this one. We're doing this from a fresh install. Fresh install means that it's more likely to work, but it doesn't need to be fresh if you already have one. So all you need to do is just type in wsl.exe --install, and then the one that I said earlier, Ubuntu -24.04, and let that install to your machine. It'll take a second. You'll be prompted to insert a username and password. Doesn't matter too much, just make sure you know your password. While this is updating, I'm going to quickly mention that if you run into an issue wondering the commands about functools or a cache or Python 3 not working, usually this can all be fixed by just making sure that you're running a new version of Ubuntu 24.04. Those are the common issues that happen when you don't do that. Here you make your credentials and the password that I said to remember. Once you're done with that, you'll have this colored line, which means that you are now running Ubuntu on your WSL thing. If you don't see that, you can just go to PowerShell and do wsl.exe -d and the name of your distro, which is Ubuntu 24.04. And once you see that color thing, you're in the thing, so you want to always make sure you're running commands like that. We are currently on the Windows file system, so if we hit cd tilde, that will take us to the root of the Linux file system on WSL. We want to do all the commands in there as well, so we usually start off there. So starting with the first command, we do a sudo apt-get update, and it will ask you for a password, and you will probably not need to do that for the rest of the steps. While I cd'd or changed directory into the root, you can put this anywhere on your Linux file system. I just did it there because I know exactly where that is. Once that step is done, we're going to run another step, which is a very long command. Again, I have all of these in the description for you to copy and paste. It's this entire thing, including -y, just so that we don't have to hit that earlier. You might run into an issue where the network doesn't connect to this, the databases of Linux. That is a again, a network issue, which is a lot of IT stuff, which is beyond the scope of this. I have fixed it before, but it's not something that is worth going over in this. You can just try to look around or ask people in a relevant Discord. I do have a really sensitive script that does this all in one step. It is at this time code where I demo it, but this is more safe to do it this way. You have access to the terminal again, so now what we want to do is actually just git clone the repository. We want to clone Jammers or Jamiroquai's repository, so that's going to be at this link, again, description. And because we do this, there's no need for checkouts like we used to. There's another alternative one-line thing that looks a little bit messy, but does the same thing. I'll also post that in the description, but you can just do it how I did it here, and it looks nicer to me. So once it's done cloning, we actually want to change the directory into the folder, and at this point we want to insert our copy of the game. There are a few ways of doing this, some you'd probably prefer. You can do this manually if you know the paths, which I'm going to do it here with a sudo copy, and then I'm going to grab it from my Windows, which is in my videos folder, don't question it, and then it's going to point from there, which is called that, and to my next one, which will be base ROMs. GCUMQ-debug, and that's the kind of version of my ROM. It might be different for you. You can look in the folder. The other way, which is probably easier, is to type in explorer.exe space period. There's an extra period there. That's on purpose, and it'll open a folder of where that is, and you can see you're in the repo, and you can look through base ROMs and find whichever one pertains to you. Mine is this one that I said earlier. And as you see, mine copied there. You want to make sure that your ROM is called base ROM. It used to be something different. It's base ROM now, and you want to put that to whichever version is the right folder. If yours isn't that the same one I have, you can go to this make file and edit it however you can, and you will see that there is a right at the bottom where it says version $equals, it says this is the default one. Mine happens to be default, but if yours isn't that type, you just switch it to one of these ones above here and just paste it into that line, then save. But once your ROM's in there, named correctly, the make file is all correct, you can close this or minimize it, and then you are now able to run the make setup step. Now this has a -j argument, which means that it uses all your cores. This means it'll run faster, but not in order. The only reason why you wouldn't want to do that is so that if you run into an issue, it is consistent with what exactly mine is doing. You should run it with the cores just for your time because it's faster. This will take a while to do, so I'm going to cut until I gain control back to my system. A quick addendum, there will be another way if you are having issues with this step about moving your files. You should be able to just drag folders and files directly through the File Explorer. Sometimes you run into permission issues. I don't know the fix for that. You can just do a fresh install, like unregister your Ubuntu on WSL and then re-download it and then do it that way, and usually that always works for me. It hasn't happened where it didn't work once, but in case that doesn't work and it just still doesn't work, I have one way that I show at the very end once everything's done on the WSL section. It will involve downloading something else, but if you really don't like using the terminal, it's there for you. Okay, and now that's done, so we can just run the last command, which is make. It has the exact same -j argument as the last one, so everything I said there, equivalent here. And then just let this run. It'll take a while, so once again, I'm going to just cut to when it's done, and then we'll move on to actually just moving the files. Okay, so now we're at this point where it says OK at the very bottom, which means that everything's fine. If it says tampered with or something went wrong, you're going to have to find another ROM or redo it or something went wrong, so you can't use it. So now we're just going to move the repo out somewhere. So you can use same explorer.exe space period to go to that folder, and then just go back one and you see the folder, and you can just drag it out. It might get caught up on two files, but you should be fine even if it says that two things can't be transmitted. It should work. You can also do this the other way, which is with a sudo copy recursive. I forgot, I need to actually back out of the oot folder. Doing the same sudo copy recursive because it's a folder. Take oot, and then just take the direction and then send it somewhere on your Windows file system, which of course you have to mount the C drive, then you go to your users, whatever, and I'm going to put it in videos because it doesn't make sense. And as you can see by the fact that my command line isn't there, you have to wait a bit. And again, there's still like 2 files, which one's like the Python file or whatever, that just gets caught up and it can't move for some reason. Shouldn't matter, usually the extracted should be fine. Again, it's probably this file that's doing it. Feel free to skip over it if it says it's hanging up on that one. But all your files should be in this extracted folder. But once it's on your Windows machine, you're done. That's it. We can now move on to the next stuff. But first, I promised another way of moving files. This is only for the people who don't want to move files the previous 2 ways. So I'm going to clear my terminal. And we already ran the sudo apt-get, install and update and all those things, so you should be fine on all those dependencies. So now we just need to do sudo apt install nautilus and then -y, just so that we don't type it later. And it's going to download. Again, this is going to take a bit to install, so I'm going to come back when it gives me access to the terminal, or when it actually shows the green thing in my name. Now that it's all installed, we can run this application by just typing in nautilus. So at this point, you might get some warnings and errors, it's fine, it'll open up. At this point, I already have the whole decomp done, but in case you were at the step where you need to put your base ROM in there, you can just go to the repo, open up wherever you need to put it, just have it there, and I'm going to just have 2 instances of it open, so I can just drag from one to the other. And you go to other locations to get to your Windows one, so go to your Ubuntu drive, go to mount, you go to the usual C, then users, then me. My ROM is located in videos, so I'm gonna go there. And despite the fact that it's already there, what I would do if I need to is just drag this over into the one on the left, and then just rename it. So I can still do that now, just with a quick drag and drop. When you actually rename it. When you're actually done with the whole process, you can do this the exact same way, just backwards. Just drag the entire folder out to the other one. You can also edit the make file. You can open it with Vim. That might not work. If it doesn't allow you to, you can again just make a text file on your Windows drive and then just move it over. Anyway, it's like a file explorer. It is a file explorer. It's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so I also promised this about a script that would do the entire process for you. This is going to be done on WSL, but the process is almost extremely similar to Linux, so it's going to serve both, but this will be the WSL version. So we're going to start by changing directory into the root, and just opening up explorer.exe, and then we're going to have this sh file, and wherever you put this file is where it's going to create this repo and do all the funny things. So you just drop that wherever and make sure you CT to that location and then hit sudo bash blendersound.sh. Private prompt password, enter that, and then just let it run. So once again, these things might take a bit, and with all the same issues from earlier, just let it run. If it runs into any issues, then the script won't work. That's why I usually don't recommend it, but if you feel pretty confident about doing everything, then be my guest. There will be a point when it asks for user input, just like a simple enter, because you need to insert your ROM. So be careful to not just press the keyboard, because if it goes ahead without you putting in your ROM and changing the settings and it just doesn't work, then you have to do the whole process over again. So we're going to let this download for a little bit. This will use all the core arguments from earlier, so the results will not be consistent between people to people, so just know that's for speed, not for accuracy. For WSL, it will actually open up folders. Meanwhile, for the Linux version, it will not do that. So they already have their own native file system, so you shouldn't need to really worry about that. It will change some permissions, just because sometimes it doesn't like allowing you to edit things once it's run through a bash command. So at this point, it opens 2 folders, one where the base ROMs are, and the other where the script file was saved to. If your ROM's there, it's easy, but if it's not, just enter that. sure, whatever. You want to drag your ROM from wherever into the base ROMs for whichever one is the correct version. So mine is gceumqdebug. I'm going to rename it first just because you still need to rename it to base ROM. And once it's dragged in there, you don't really need the first folder or file explorer, and the second one, you might need to change your makefile if you aren't using the defaults or you need to change anything else. But once all that is changed, you don't need either folders, and now you can just hit enter or any key on the keyboard and it will continue in the process until it is entirely done. And it will do all the steps until it gives you that OK at the end, or that it's tampered with and you need to redo some things. If it doesn't work, you gotta restart the entire process. But if it does, that's the entire decomp process done, and you need to move it out manually. It does not move it out anywhere by itself. That is up to you. With that done, we are now done with the entire decomp process for Linux and WSL. We can now move on to other tools, and first off, and most importantly, is this new version of Fast64. So here's the version of Fast64 we're going to be using by John Jamiroquai Blender Sound Fast64. Here's the link, I'll provide in the description. But to do this, all you need to do is just hit the code button and then download zip, and then put it where you want. That is it. There's only one version for this. Nothing like before. We also have Retro, which packs OTRs and O2Rs. I will post the repo in the description. Once you get here, go to the releases page and download the most recent. For me is 0.2.1. Purple Hater is working on a Neo Retro, but it is only an alpha, and I'll post a Discord link to the alpha, but it's not released yet. I guarantee you when it's fully released, it will be better than this, and I recommend using that, so check the pinned comment as I will update it when it does release. But at this current moment, use this one, this most recent version, and if there's slight issues, Neo Retro might be able to solve it, the alpha version that is. As I said, Hato is back. He has made an asset database. This is important for importing and exporting things when you're using Blender. It has a SOH and 2-ship to Harkinian. We're going to go to Ocarina of Time, and you can just see how you can go through multiple things. Use the search tool for animation, segment calls, DLs, whatever you want. So if you want like a link animation, you can just search for it, and it's that simple. And with those discussed, we're going to now move on into Blender. Okay, now that we're fresh in the Blender, let's go install the add-on. So you're going to go to Edit, Preferences, and then you're going to click this, Install from Disk. Navigate to wherever you downloaded that GitHub repository. Mine is right there. And it should automatically install, and it will say SOH or 2S 2H. This means we're the right one, and it will also say that maintainer has Jamiroquai in it. So that's the right version. Now, if you want to access the menu, you can just hit N, so that does it. A lot of this should be covered by guides, so I'm just going to go over very basic stuff that they might not go over. First is about conjoining, so let's say I want to give this thing a party hat. Let's just spawn in a cone, G, Z, move it up, and then you can select everything, or whatever, Control J, and that will conjoin them so that they move together. This is good for like the hand deals and things, which I'll talk a little bit about later. Next we're going to talk about importing though. Mine was an FBX, you can see here. It ran into an issue, so I had to use an FBX converter. I'll link that in the description, but if you're using an FBX or whatever, don't run into the issue, don't download it. You won't need it. It's just I needed it, so I just linked it anyway. So, continuing the trend of last time where I import something questionable, let's do it again. Okay, so when you see this, you might not see any of the textures. That is just the viewpoint you're in. So you go up to here, and I go for this one that just goes for straight materials, and you can see everything. So you're going to see a bunch of these bones for your armature. You're going to want to clear the parent. There's 3 ways of doing this. Either you can right click, go to parent, and then go down to clear parent. You can have it selected, hit Alt P, clear parent, or you're going to delete it later, so you can just delete it now and that will do the same thing. Now when you delete it, this may happen where it just gets extremely big. So all you need to do is just do the entire thing. And I hit R, hit the X axis, and then type in 90. You can do R and then whatever axis and then numbers just so it snaps to it. But that's what I did, and that's the correct orientation. And then you can just press S to scale it. Now let's talk about actually using Fast64. Again, this works for MM and OOT, but we're going to just go over this quickly. Hit N to open up the menu. We're going to go to Fast64, and you can select MM if you want, but everything is in the OOT tab. So you're going to see this decomp path, and you're going to click this file, and then go to where you have it stored. I have my OOT folder here. You're going to go one deep, and then hit accept once you see that. And you were done with that. So let's say we want to import link. We want to go to skeleton exporter. It imports and exports, it has both. You're going to scroll all the way down, and you're going to click the mode, go to adult link, and then import. There's nothing else you need to do because link's pretty much built for this. And it's going to take a second to import. And there it is. So as starting off, you should always remove the LOD version of link. So I'm just going to quickly delete that. And then go into your whole Blender file, remove anything with LOD in it. And now you have your link here in a different recipe as normal, but it's still fine. It's just what the new one is. You're able to work on it. So now we're going to go into actual importing of animations, which was not possible with the legacy Fast64 version. So once you get to this point, you can just open up your menu once again and go to the animation exporter or importer, same deal as last time. If you're using link, you want to hit this is link button, and then in this little slot, paste in whatever the animation is called. Again, use that database from earlier. Then you want to select the armature, which are these little bones, and then hit import. And you can use the timeline at the bottom to run it. That is the end of the basics, so I'm going to quickly ramble about some smaller things that you might need to know. 1. In Peyton's guide, he talks about moving bones. Moving bones affects actual physics in the game, which is allowed to do. It just means that when you upload it to Game Banana, your mod, it will be not race legal, which I believe is what they call it when it affects certain things, which is like skips. This version of Fast64 does auto-update, and they're planning on adding support for the newest decomp, but the old one that I set you up for should still work, so no matter when this you're watching this, it should still be fine. From Jammer himself, exporting hands is the same. Equipment may be different if you're not using the custom alt equip system, which I assume a new tutorial will probably come out and explain it. It will be in the Discord if you need help, not for me to explain because I don't know. He mentions that it's because you can use a call display list to enter your DL and export it that way, using a matrix path. I really stopped counting after the number 1, but the new version exports at game accurate scale. It used to be like 1,000 or something, but I can't remember. Point is that if you were trying to move stuff from an old version of an old blend, using that to a new one, you're gonna do some weird stuff. Ask the Discord for it. Ever since Peyton did this thing, there's a lot more stuff now. There's like custom boots, like the hover boots, custom tunics. You can now do animations loosely. There's a lot of things that I don't even know because this was never my skill. I will provide a modders resource thing that's out. I think it's still work in progress at this moment, but it will tell you a lot more about that. Just go to the Discord, and for God's sake, read the pinned comment. It's important. I'm not making another tutorial.